What's up guys? I'm Claire and I'm back with another stop motion editing video. This one has lots of masking in it, which means we have a lot of work to do. So let's get started. So we're gonna start out in Adobe Lightroom Classic. I have my quick collection up, which has every single image involved that will be made into our stop motion. So here's what we're working with. We got some palms hanging from a C-stand. We got some gummies lined up on particle board. And yeah, so basically what we're gonna do right now is prep all these images with the same batch editing so we can move them over to Photoshop and so that they all look the same. So we're gonna copy the settings, make sure that everything's clicked. I do wanna include the crop because they all need to be cropped the same. And we're basically just going to copy and paste or develop those settings onto all of the images. And after everything is batch edited, we're going to right click, edit in, and open as layers in Photoshop. And that is basically going to open up every single raw image into one file in Photoshop, and they're gonna come out as layers. And there they go. This actually takes a while. This is kind of sped up right now. Yeah, so there's everything. Looks like everything's in order. Cool. I'm going to change the name of this final frame, just so if anything happens, I know that that's like the final frame with all the gummies in their final position. And I'm also going to rename this base layer with 0 gummies as like the base. All right, so now that our files are all organized, we're going to move on to our first masking, which is going to be redoing the background from this kind of like grayish color to a gradient. So first we're going to be using the object selection tool as well as the lasso tool, and then all these brushes that you kind of see on the top left toolbar here to very carefully mask around all of the gummy packets, as well as making sure that the horizon line that cuts between the foreground and the background is also super precisely masked. So I will say I am still getting used to using the different masking brushes. I do kind of swap around in between different ones depending on what I'm doing, and I just kind of learn as I go which one works best for whatever situation I find myself in. So yeah, again, I'm just going in and trying my best to clean up the corners, the lines, making sure that the mask is precise as possible, because again, we're doing this to change the background from that kind of white, gray, just background color into a kind of like a bluey cloud gradient. So all right, the first part of the masking is done. I'm gonna make a few copies of that layer. I like to make lots of copies as I edit, just kind of for safety purposes. All right, so the next step that I'm gonna do before continuing with building our mask for our background is to go in with my spot healing brush tool and just kind of clean up all of those little nibs and irregularities that are in this palm. It's a fake palm leaf, so yeah, there's lots of like little like plastic things jutting out that are slightly unsightly that I want to get rid of. So yeah, just going around making it as clean as possible. All right, that looks pretty good. So we're going to keep moving on. We're going to continue doing the mask to basically prepare to change the background again. So I'm going to go in and mask the palm now that it's all clean, because again, I only want to change the background. I don't want any changes on the palms or on like the gummies or the foreground itself, just the background. So gotta take the time to go in and start playing again with all these little brushes on this left-hand toolbar, and take the time to just really cleanly mask around every single little tiny palm leaf. I do want to mention that I am using what's called a Wacom tablet to do this editing. So instead of using just like a regular mouse as my controller in Photoshop, I actually have a smart tablet with a little pen stylus, and that allows me to basically almost draw on the screen. So everything that I'm doing it feels like I'm drawing it. And I'll leave a little link in the top corner for you if you want to learn more about this tablet. I really recommend this to anybody who uses Photoshop and like uses Photoshop often, because it really makes editing a lot more fun and a lot easier, and like this kind of like tedious like stuff, it's just much easier. So yeah, I really would recommend that. Really helps in situations like this. So I'm still here, I'm still cleaning this up, and just so you know, this screen capture is sped up at least 8 times the normal speed, so just so you know, this does take a while. It's not a quick edit by any means. Alright, we're almost there. Looking pretty good, except I am still missing kind of the tips of the palms, if you can see. The color of the masking I'm using is black, and the opacity is set to 80%. You can change your mask to be like whatever color you want. I'm using black right now, but here as I zoom in, you can see that the black is still not covering the tips of the palms, which means they're not masked out, which stinks because those little like tips are like really cool, and I want them to be included. So let me just kind of figure out which of these brush tools works best to mask out the little tips. Nope, not that one. Oh, tee-hee, I was going the wrong way. Alright, there we go. Alright, that's the tool. That's the one, second from the top. Awesome, that's doing exactly what I need it to. So now I'm just going to go over every single little palm and make sure that the mask goes all the way up to the tiny fine tip at the end, because again, I want to include all of that detail. Okay, I think that was the last one. Alright, yeah, it looks pretty darn awesome. Cool, so I'm going to smooth that out into about 8 again, and cool, there is our mask. Now that everything has been masked out, I'm going to make another copy again because I like copies of stuff, and I'm going to click this gradient tool on the left, and that's going to pop up. Basically you drag a line and it creates this really pretty gradient. Quick disclaimer, I will say I edited this stop motion previously for my client, and so the final thing that I'll show you in the beginning and the end has a different gradient than what I'm going to do right now, just because to remake the same exact gradient would be really difficult. So I'm just going to do this pretty kind of purpley blue one, and I'm going to rename the layer with the gradient as like the gradient layer, because ultimately that is what I want all of the images to look like. I want all of them to have that gradient background. And now that we do have the gradient background, I'm using the lasso tool to quickly just kind of dump and remove the masking from the palm, because I'm going to switch the mask around so that it only shows the exact opposite, which is the gummies in the foreground, because that's where the motion is going to be, and that's where I want to see changes as we go from layer to layer or frame to frame when we actually get into the timeline. Alright, so now it is officially time to copy this mask and apply it to every single frame or every single layer I have down in this right corner. So I'm going to do that by clicking the option key, and just dragging the mask again to every single layer. And I'm also going to copy the slate or the base layer with all the edits, the new gradient background, and I'm going to copy that layer again to every single layer as well, so that there's a new file, a mask, as well as a slate copy for every single layer. Alright, and then once there's one of each, for every layer, I'm going to merge them together, making sure that I only have one of each highlighted. And I'm basically merging the mask with the slate to again only show the foreground, because that's what is open to the mask right now. The top with the palm and the gradient background, that's not changing at all. It is the same exact in every frame. Alright, so again, I'm just going one by one, merging all these files together. This does take some time for sure. Alright, and that's it. Just messing with the visibility. Ooh, it's gonna be so cool. Okay, cool. So now we're at the bottom. Now I gotta make sure that I don't have any extra copies, because like I said before, I like to copy my layers for safety. So I'm just going to merge or delete any of the ones that need to go, that have been duplicated, and gonna turn my visibility back on. And yeah, that is pretty much it for editing. Super stoked. So now we're going to go to Window and scroll all the way down to Timeline. We're gonna click Create Frame Animation, and then go to this little box on the right and click Make Frames from Layers. So every single layer that you see on the right is going to show up as its own frame in Timeline. And I have all of them selected or highlighted, and I just changed the frame duration to 0.1 seconds. And you just press play on the timeline, and there she goes. That looks pretty darn cool. All right, so all the gummies are coming out from behind the packets like they should. It looks nice and clean, but the only thing is I actually wanted to do kind of an in and out. So I'm going to do that. I'll show you what I mean by in and out in a second. I'm gonna copy, and I'm gonna paste frames after the selection. So I basically just like copied all of the frames, but I'm going to reverse the second half so that the gummies appear to come out, but then also go back in. So I like just copied and reversed my frames to have like this like loop where they go out and in and out and in. And yeah, this is what it looks like. For some reason, Photoshop kind of goes slow on the first round once you hit play, but once it cycles through the first round of frames, it kind of goes into real time. So that's what it should look like. That's the speed. And then go right back in. And yeah, guys, that's it. See how the background's not moving? There's no changes in light. The only things that are changing are the foreground and the gummies themselves. Looks pretty good. They're super cute. Alright guys, hang in there. We are almost done. The final steps for the stop motion edit are to just save our files, or rather we're going to export them. So saving for web, make sure you're doing a .gif file instead of a JPEG. You can also export and click render video to render your stop motion into an MP4 file, which is perfect for platforms like Instagram or Facebook that don't communicate with the GIF files. Alright guys, and that is it. Here's our finished product. Congrats if you made it all the way through. This was a really intense edit. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments you know, what's up. Thanks again, and catch you next time. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Bye!